Hey everyone, ready to step up your product game? Today we're going deep on Agile product management, but with a bit of a
A
twist.
twist.
Well, you guys sent in a specific guide. You wanted us to unpack the IIBA's Agile Product Ownership Analysis,
That's right.
and we're going to zero in on the techniques that make a real
It's
difference.
not just theory, right? We're going to
Okay.
pull out those practical tools and strategies that folks can actually put into action.
Exactly. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting your Agile journey, this is for you.
So let's get right to it.
All right, let's unpack this. What stands out from this POA guide? How does it all connect to what's happening in Agile product management right now?
One of the first things that jumped out at me was the emphasis on backlog refinement.
Okay.
It's not just about getting ready for the next sprint. It's about crafting a backlog that truly reflects what users need and fits into your overall product strategy.
So it's like going beyond listing features and really digging into the why behind each item.
Yeah, absolutely. The guide talks about fleshing out those backlog items from the user's perspective.
Makes sense.
Thinking about their goals, their pain points. How will this feature actually help them achieve what they want?
Okay, so instead of just saying implement user login, you'd be thinking, as a new user, I want to easily create an account and log in so I can start using the app right away.
Exactly. And even going a step further, like imagine different users might approach this differently.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe one user is all about speed, wants a single click login.
Right.
Another user might prioritize security and wants that two-factor authentication.
Oh, I see. So you're really catering to different user personas within that single feature.
Precisely. It's all about those details.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're getting specific with those user stories. Now, the guide also talks about business cases.
Yes, but not in that traditional static document kind of way.
Okay, so how is it different?
The POA guide describes agile business cases as evolving documents, almost like living product plans. They incorporate continuous value realization market assessment and that deep understanding of the product lifecycle.
So you're constantly evaluating the business case as you learn more about your users and the market.
Exactly. It really clicks with the core principles of Agile, where you're iterating and adapting based on feedback and data.
So it's not just about ROI, it's about building a product with a purpose that fits into your overall business strategy.
And sometimes that might mean prioritizing long-term value over immediate financial returns.
Interesting.
The guide gives a great example of a product strategy that's focused on rapid user onboarding.
Right, let's hear it.
Imagine you're launching a new social media platform.
Okay.
You might actually choose to sacrifice some initial revenue to make the onboarding process super smooth.
Okay, so make it as frictionless as possible.
Right, because you know that attracting a huge user base early on will lead to greater customer lifetime value down the line.
So you're playing the long game, building a strong community, and then monetizing later.
That's the idea, that strategic thinking is crucial in agile product management.
Makes sense. Okay, so we've got backlog refinement, we've got these evolving business cases. Now, the guide also mentions collaborative games.
Oh, yeah.
And honestly, I'm a little skeptical about using games for anything more than just team building.
I get it, but these games can be surprisingly effective,
How so?
especially when you're dealing with tough problems or limited data. The guide gives an example called the $100 test for prioritization.
Okay, so do we literally give everyone $100? What's the deal?
Not quite, but the idea is each stakeholder gets a hypothetical $100 to spend on a list of proposed features. And this forces them to make some tough choices.
Right.
Really reveals which features they truly value.
Oh, I see. So it's a way to surface those must-have features and align everyone on priorities.
Exactly. And another example is the friend or foe game, which is used for stakeholder analysis.
Friend or foe? That sounds intense.
It is. Well, in a productive way, stakeholders actually discuss and categorize other stakeholders
Okay.
based on how likely they are to support different product development activities.
So instead of just guessing who's on board, you're having a structured conversation to map out the stakeholder landscape.
Exactly. And these games create a safe space for folks to express different viewpoints, which is so important for building shared understanding and avoiding conflicts.
Okay, I'm starting to see the value here. It's not just about fun. It's about getting people thinking, collaborating, and making those informed decisions.
Absolutely. And that's really at the heart of agile product management, making the right decisions at the right time based on the best info you have.
Speaking of making decisions, the guide dives into these definition concepts. Ready delivery and done. Can we talk about those? How do these definitions work in an agile context?
Absolutely. These definitions are like the foundation of agile, but the guide stresses that they're not these rigid, unchanging rules.
Right. They should evolve.
They evolve as the team understands the product better and as you get feedback. It's all about being a living document, adapting to the ever-changing world of product development.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, let's break it down. First up, the definition of ready. What does that mean in Agile?
In Agile, the definition of ready makes sure that backlog items have enough detail for the team to start development without unnecessary delays or having to redo things.
So it's about making sure everyone is on the same page before anything gets built.
Exactly. And the level of detail needed will vary depending on the team and the product. Some teams need those fully fleshed out UI mockups. Others are okay with a basic description of what the functionality should be.
Got it. Next, we have the definition of delivery. What does a successful release look like in Agile?
It's about defining the criteria for a successful release that goes beyond just, okay, the code is done.
Yeah, so more than just technical completion.
Right. It could include things like marketing materials are finalized, training materials are ready, or even specific performance metrics are being hit.
So you're ensuring that the features are not just built, but they're actually ready to be launched and used by real customers.
Exactly. And that leads us to the definition of done, which clarifies what complete truly means in Agile.
Okay, so this is where you get super granular and define those specific criteria that must be met for a feature to be considered finished.
Yes. Could include things like unit tests, path and code reviews, completed documentation, updated the product owner signing off, and any other quality checks you've agreed on.
So it's about dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's.
Precisely. The guide even gives an example of how these definitions can be applied to something like a release plan, making sure everyone is crystal clear on what release ready actually means.
Oh, that's helpful.
Right. A release ready plan might need to have things like a high-level capacity plan for delivery and support resources, size estimates for all the work involved, any dependencies that could cause hiccups, and those clear release criteria like hardening or stabilization requirements.
Wow, it's pretty comprehensive. I see how these definitions can really streamline things and keep everyone aligned, which is so important in a fast-paced, agile environment.
Absolutely. It's all about reducing ambiguity, minimizing rework, and ultimately delivering value to your customers faster and more efficiently.
All right, we've covered a lot of ground here. Let's take a pause and come back to explore more techniques from this Agile Product Ownership Analysis Guide after a short break.
Okay, so let's jump back in and explore a concept that's really hot in Agile product management right now, the minimal viable product.
The MVP.
Yeah.
Right. It's one of those buzzwords that gets thrown around a lot.
It does.
But I got to say, the POA guide does a great job of explaining it in a way that makes sense.
Yeah, it's not about just like throwing something together quickly or rushing a half-baked product out the door.
Right.
It's about testing a hypothesis with just enough features to gather real feedback from your users.
I like that emphasis on validated learning. It's about building the right thing, not just building something fast.
Exactly. And the guide lays out 5 key steps for crafting a good MVP.
Okay, it may.
The first step is to analyze the purpose of your MVP.
So, like, what are you actually trying to test? What kind of learning are you hoping to get?
Exactly. You need to be crystal clear about your goals before you even start building anything.
Makes sense. What's next?
The second step is to choose the right MVP approach for your specific situation.
Okay, and this is where it gets interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because an MVP doesn't have to be like a fully functional product.
Exactly. Your MVP could be a simple landing page, a clickable prototype, or even a concierge-style service where you manually fulfill user requests.
I like that cool idea.
It all depends on your product and what you're trying to learn.
This reminds me of Dropbox's initial MVP, which is just an explainer video showing how file syncing works.
Oh, yeah, it's a classic example.
They didn't even have a real product yet, but the
Yeah.
video got so much attention that they knew they were onto something.
Exactly. It's about finding the most efficient way to test your hypothesis and get that feedback.
Okay, so step 1, figure out your purpose. Step 2, choose the right approach. What's step 3?
Step 3 is identifying that minimum set of features to test your hypothesis.
So it's about prioritizing ruthlessly, right? Separating the must-haves from the nice-to-have.
Exactly. Remember, you're aiming for the least amount of effort to gain the maximum amount of learning.
Less is more.
In this case, yes. Then step 4 is building your product roadmap.
And this roadmap outlines the journey from your MVP to a minimum marketable feature and then eventually to a minimum marketable product, which is that first sellable version, right?
Yes. You're basically plotting out how you'll learn, starting with the MVP and iterating toward a fully fledged product.
Okay, so you have your initial test, then you build upon it.
Exactly. And finally, step 5, the most crucial one, is measuring what you learn from each iteration.
So you're gathering feedback from your users, looking at the data and using those insights to inform your next move.
Exactly. The whole MVP process is about continuous learning and adaptation. You validate your assumptions and adjust course as you go.
It's like that famous quote from Eric Ries, the lean startup guy, get out of the building and talk to your customers.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, so once you've built your MVP, tested your hypothesis, and gathered feedback, it's time to think about product market fit.
Right. Product market fit is like finding that sweet spot where your product perfectly meets a real market need. And that's crucial for everyone, startups and established companies alike.
Absolutely. Failing to achieve product market fit can kill any product, no matter how innovative or cool it is.
You can have the most amazing product in the world, but if nobody wants it, it's not going to succeed.
And the POA guide offers a framework for assessing and achieving product market fit. It starts with truly understanding your target customer.
So you need to figure out who your ideal customer is, understand their needs and pain points, and see how your competitors are already addressing those needs.
Exactly. Then you create a value proposition that clearly communicates the benefits of your product to your target customer.
Okay.
And you plan your MVP based on that understanding.
Got it. And then, as we talked about before, you measure.
You got it. You need to track those quantitative metrics like your churn rate and your net promoter score, as well as those qualitative indicators like word of mouth and media buzz.
So you're getting a full picture of how your product is performing.
Right. And even when you achieve product market fit, the work doesn't stop.
Right, because the market is always changing.
Exactly. Market dynamics are constantly shifting, so you need to stay sharp, keep iterating, and adapt your product to meet those evolving needs.
Complacency can be deadly in the product world. Okay, so we've got MVPs and product market fit down. Now, the POA guide draws on a few specific techniques from Chapter 6 that I want to dig into.
Okay, let's hear them.
Customer journey maps, decision modeling, and empathy maps.
Those are great choices. They offer powerful ways to really get inside your customer's head and understand their needs.
Let's dive in. First up, customer journey maps. What are they, and how do they fit into Agile product management?
A customer journey map is a visual representation of your customer's experience from their perspective. You see their motivations and emotions at each touch point.
It's like walking a mile in your customer's shoes, right? Experiencing your product through their eyes.
Exactly. And by understanding those touch points, you can find opportunities to address pain points, make interactions smoother, and create a better overall experience.
The guide breaks down the customer journey into those key stages: awareness consideration, decision retention, and advocacy.
Each stage is a crucial interaction point where you can make a positive impact and build a stronger relationship with your customer.
Okay, so how do you actually create one of these maps?
You start by figuring out who your target customer is and what kind of journey you want to map.
Yeah.
Is it a single interaction or a multi-channel experience? Once you have that clarity, you map out all the potential touch points.
Okay.
And try to understand what your customer is trying to achieve at each stage.
And I bet identifying those pain points is super important.
Oh, absolutely. You need to know where customers are getting frustrated, what's slowing them down, or even causing them to abandon the journey altogether.
Right, because you want to fix those issues.
Exactly. You capture both the qualitative and quantitative aspects of those pain points. Then you brainstorm solutions, prioritize improvements, and assign someone to implement those changes.
So it's action-oriented.
It has to be. And remember, a customer journey map isn't static. It evolves as your product and your understanding of your customers change.
It's a living document.
Yeah.
Okay, so customer journey maps help us understand the user experience. Now, what about decision modeling? How does that work in Agile?
Decision modeling brings structure and clarity to decision-making, especially when there's uncertainty, which is like always in product development.
It sounds like a way to make those tough choices in a more thoughtful way.
That's it. The guide highlights 3 main types of product decisions, those related to product strategy, feature selection, and feature timing.
Okay, so product strategy decisions are those big picture choices that set the direction.
Right, like defining your target market, figuring out customer needs, and establishing your overall product goals.
Those are the foundational decisions.
Exactly, and for those high-level decisions, you might need to use some fancy strategy analysis tools to weigh your options and pick the best path.
Okay, and then there are decisions about specific product features.
Yes. This is where you analyze different ideas, feature requests, and business considerations to select the features that best meet those customer needs.
So this is where you decide what to build.
Right. And techniques like Moscow prioritization can be really helpful here.
Oh, can you explain Moscow? I've heard of it, but I'm not totally sure what it is.
Sure. Moscow stands for must have, should have, could have, and won't have. It's a prioritization technique that helps you categorize features based on their importance and urgency.
So you're making tough choices about which features are absolutely essential and which ones can wait?
Exactly. Focus your energy on the features that will deliver the most value. And finally, you have decisions about feature priority and timing.
Right, because it's not just about choosing the features, you also have to decide when to release them.
Exactly. And that's where techniques like value scoring models and road mapping come in. You sequence your features to maximize impact and align with your overall product strategy.
So you're creating a release plan.
Yes, and the guide also mentions the need for a formal decision framework, especially for complex products or organizations with established decision-making processes.
What does that look like?
It's a blueprint for how product decisions should be made. It outlines clear process flows, checklists, and even a decision authority matrix.
So everyone knows how decisions are made and who has the final say.
Exactly. You remove ambiguity, streamline the process, and make sure everyone is on the same page.
Sounds like it could prevent a lot of headaches.
It definitely can. Okay, now let's move on to empathy maps. One of my favorites.
Empathy maps are all about putting yourself in your customer's shoes, right? Really understanding their world.
Yes. You go beyond just demographics and data points and connect with your customers on a human level.
I love that. It's about understanding not just what your customers are doing, but why they're doing it.
Exactly. What are their motivations, their frustrations, their aspirations? You're trying to understand what they're thinking and feeling what they're seeing and hearing what they're saying and doing. And most importantly, you're trying to uncover their pain points and their gains.
Okay, so how do you create an empathy map?
The guide provides a visual framework, dividing the map into quadrants that represent different perspectives.
Okay.
So you might have a quadrant for think and feel, where you capture the customer's thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and motivations.
Got it.
Then a quadrant for hear, where you document what the customer is hearing from their friends, colleagues, and other sources.
Right.
And of course, you have quadrants for see and say and do to capture those visual and behavioral cues.
So it's a comprehensive view.
It is, but it's those final two quadrants, pain and gain, that are really key.
Why that?
These are where you identify the customer's frustrations and aspirations, their challenges and desired outcomes.
So you can design solutions that actually resonate with your customers and address those unmet needs.
Exactly. To create these maps, you gather customer research through interviews, surveys, and observations.
Okay.
You bring your team together, review your research, and start filling out the different quadrants of the map.
It sounds like a team effort.
It is. And remember, encourage your team to share their perspectives, challenge assumptions, and debate interpretations. The goal is to build that shared understanding of your customer's emotional journey.
I imagine it's also valuable to include actual customers in the process whenever possible.
Oh, absolutely. There's no substitute for hearing directly from your users. They can validate your assumptions, give you more context, and offer insights you might have missed.
That makes sense. Okay, so we've covered customer journey maps, decision modeling, and empathy maps. These techniques all focus on really understanding your customer.
And that deep understanding is key for mitigating risk in agile product management.
Okay, so let's shift gears and talk about risk. How does risk analysis and management fit into Agile?
It's about identifying those areas of uncertainty that could potentially derail your product development and figuring out how to mitigate them.
The IIBA guide breaks down product risks into three main categories.
Yes. Business risk delivery and execution risk and market risk.
Okay, let's break those down. First, business risk. What is that?
Business risks are those high-level risks related to the overall viability of your product.
So things like a sudden shift in market demand, a change in regulations, or a competitor releasing a game-changing product.
Exactly. Those are the big external factors that can make or break your product.
Right, those are scary ones. What about delivery and execution risk?
Those are more about the day-to-day realities of actually building and releasing a product.
So like going over budget, missing deadlines, or running into technical roadblocks.
Exactly. Those are the things that can slow you down and impact your ability to deliver.
And then there's market risk.
Yeah.
What falls into that category?
Market risks are all about whether your product will actually resonate with your target customers.
Will they find it valuable? Will they actually use it? Will they recommend it to others?
Exactly. Those are the questions that keep product managers up at night.
And while all three types of risk are important, the guide emphasizes that market risks are often the most critical.
They are. They can make or break a product. And that's where those techniques we've been talking about, especially those focused on understanding your customer, can really make a difference.
Right. By deeply understanding your customer, their needs, their pain points, and their aspirations, you can reduce the risk of building something that nobody wants.
Exactly. And the guide outlines a bunch of strategies for mitigating market risk.
Like what?
Things like conducting thorough customer research, using techniques like ethnography to observe customers in their natural environment, and of course, releasing MVPs to test those assumptions and gather real feedback.
And let's not forget about tracking the right metrics and KPIs.
Absolutely. By keeping an eye on the data, you can get an early warning signal if your product isn't resonating with the market and make adjustments before it's too late.
So it's all about being proactive and data-driven. Okay, we've covered a lot here. Backlog refinement, business cases, collaborative games, definition concepts, minimal viable products, product market fit, and risk analysis and management.
It's a lot, but it all ties together.
And the common thread running through it all is the importance of putting the customer at the center of everything.
Yes. It's not just about building features, it's about building solutions that solve real problems for real people.
And that's what Agile product ownership analysis is all about.
Absolutely. Understanding your customer, mitigating risk, and delivering value.
Now we've just scratched the surface of what's covered in the IIBA's Agile Product Ownership Analysis Guide.
There's a ton of great stuff in there, and I highly recommend checking out the full document.
But for today's deep dive, we wanted to focus on those techniques that are most relevant to you as a product person.
Hopefully this has given you some actionable insights you can apply to your own work.
So here's a final thought for you.
Yeah.
What's one technique from this deep dive that you could try out this week?
It could be as simple as creating an empathy map for your target user or revisiting your definition of done to make sure everyone on your team is on the same page about quality.
Small changes can lead to big results. So pick one technique, give it a shot, and see how it impacts your product development process.
Until next time, keep diving deep and keep those customers at the heart of everything you do. So we talked about customer journey maps, decision modeling, and empathy maps, all about really understanding your customers.
And understanding those customers is essential for mitigating risk in Agile.
Absolutely. You can't just hope for the best. You need to identify those areas of uncertainty that could trip you up and have a plan to deal with them.
The guide talks about different types of risks, like business risk.
Right. Those are the big picture ones that could impact the whole viability of your product.
So like what if suddenly there's no demand for your product anymore, or the regulations change, or a competitor swoops in with something way better?
Exactly. Those are the things that keep you up at night.
No kidding. Okay, so that's business risk. What about delivery and execution risk?
That's more about the day-to-day stuff, the nuts and bolts of building and releasing your product.
So things like going over budget, missing deadlines, or running into those unexpected technical challenges.
Exactly. Those are the things that can really slow you down and derail your progress.
Okay, and then there's market risk, which I guess is all about whether people will actually want what you're building.
Exactly. Will they see the value in it? Will they use it? Will they tell their friends about it? Those are the questions that matter.
And the guide says that market risk is often the most critical.
It makes sense, right? I mean, you can have the most amazing technology, the most beautifully designed product, but if nobody wants it, it's a failure.
So true.
Yeah.
So how do you actually mitigate market risk?
Well, a lot of it comes back to what we've been talking about, understanding your customer.
Right. If you really know your target audience, you're less likely to build something that misses the mark.
Exactly. And the guide outlines some specific strategies for mitigating market risk.
Like what?
Well, for starters, you need to do your research. Talk to your customers, observe them, see how they're using your product or even competitor products.
That's where techniques like ethnography come in, right? Going out into the field and observing users in their natural habitat.
Exactly. You can learn so much from just watching people interact with your product. And of course, releasing those MVPs is crucial.
Right, because that gives you real-world feedback early on so you can adjust course if needed.
Exactly. And don't forget about tracking your metrics and KPIs.
Those numbers can tell you a lot.
They can.
Yeah.
If you're seeing a high churn rate or your net promoter score is tanking, that's a sign that something's wrong.
So you need to dig in, figure out what's going on, and make changes before it's too late.
Exactly. It's all about being proactive and data-driven. Okay, so we've covered a ton of ground today, from backlog refinement to business cases to collaborative games to MVPs to risk management.
It's a lot to process,
Mm-hmm.
but I feel like there's a common thread running through it all.
What's that?
It's all about putting the customer at the center of your product development process.
That's the heart of it. It's not just about building features, it's about building solutions that solve real problems for real people.
And that's what Agile product ownership analysis is all about, right?
Absolutely. Understanding your customer, mitigating risk, and delivering value.
Now we've only scratched the surface of what's in the IIBA's Agile Product Ownership Analysis Guide.
It's a fantastic resource, and I encourage everyone to check it out.
But hopefully this deep dive has given you some food for thought, some ideas to experiment with, and some new tools to add to your Agile toolbox.
And remember, Agile is all about continuous learning and improvement. So keep experimenting, keep iterating, and keep those customers at the heart of everything you do.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Agile product management.
Until next time, happy building in the